What hurts most about Neymar's late career chapter isn't just a scoreline. It's the accumulation of signs that his body and the footballing context no longer bend to his will. The homecoming to Santos, after ending things in Saudi Arabia, was meant to be a restorative loop back to where it all began. Familiar faces, the villa, a rhythm that could reignite confidence and minutes before the World Cup cycle closed. Reality was harsher. The first months brought short runs of matches punctuated by more time with the medical staff than anyone wanted. The story of the last 5 years kept repeating itself. A brilliant touch, a clever assist, a spark, and then a pause. It's not one injury, it's the compounding effect. There was a torn ACL in 2023, long ankle layoffs before that, and stop-start muscle setbacks after. Every break in the calendar steals a little timing, a little confidence, a little willingness to drive past two men in tight spaces. When your game was built on explosiveness, elastic control, and a first step that could wrong-foot entire defenses, those micro losses add up. The pressure at Santos magnified everything. With the club trying to rebuild identity and results under heavy expectations, every slip resounded twice as loud. Some nights the affection returned in full. Other nights, frustration spilled over. That's the life of an icon at a giant in transition. You are the symbol of hope and the lightning rod for disappointment at the same time. The afternoon that became emblematic of this era was the 6-0 to Vasco at Morumbi's. The match got away after the break, the team unraveled, and Neymar, who has lived countless decisive nights, sat on the grass and cried. It was a human moment more than a sports moment, the kind that strips away myth and leaves only a player confronting what he can and can't change anymore. From there, the conversation inevitably widened. Leadership, dressing room mood, tactical shape, the manager's choices, the club's short-term planning. But the hardest conversation is the most intimate one. How Neymar himself must rewrite the way he influences a game. He's always been a generator of advantage. He draws two markers, breaks a line on the dribble, freezes a defender with a pause, and then whips a pass into the corridor of uncertainty. Today, he has to select those moments rather than live in them. That means more touches between the lines and fewer 40-meter sprints, more 1-2s that turn a center-back's hips rather than repeated duels in the channel, more final ball cruelty and less constant acceleration. It's not about shrinking, it's about adjusting the ratio of genius to grind. The constant rumor in the background, returning to Barcelona, never dies because the bond is real and the football there once fit him like a glove. But it is close to impossible now. Barca are younger, more rigid about wages and minutes, and more protective of injury risk. Even if the emotional door is never fully shut, the sporting door only creaks open for a player who can prove week after week that he will be available and decisive in April and May. That's the bar. To get there from Brazil, he would need a stretch of months with uninterrupted games, tangible end product, and a body that cooperates. Romance alone won't do it. Faced with that reality, renewing with Santos makes sense. It gives him a stable base, less travel, and a competition rhythm that can be carefully managed. It also sets a simpler scoreboard. No European shop window, no speculation cycle every Monday, just matches that either show he's building a new consistency or don't. For the club, the task is to protect him from being the answer to every problem, and to build a framework that reduces his defensive running and maximizes his touches in high-leverage pockets. For him, the task is to accept that this is no longer about reclaiming 2015. It's about crafting a 2025 version that still wins games by reading the flow better than anyone else on the pitch. That's where the late career blueprint comes in. First, a ruthless physical plan. Realistic minute caps, scheduled breathers, no rush back from tightness just because a big opponent is next. Second, the right role. More often as a free left-sided playmaker who receives facing goal, with runners outside and ahead of him, not as an isolated winger asked to beat three men from a standstill. Third, partnership profiles. A fullback comfortable inverting to give him interior support, a 9 who threatens the near post on every cutback, and a right-sided midfielder who attacks the penalty spot when he looks up. Those details turn touches into chances without demanding a body that he no longer has every 3 days. The emotional management matters as much as the tactical one. The image of him crying after the 6-0 will linger, but it can be a pivot rather than an epitaph. Public apologies and grand speeches won't rebuild anything. Small, visible habits will. The dressing room reads those cues. Arriving early, finishing training with extra finishing reps, taking younger teammates aside for micro corrections, staying in the structure when frustration flares. Fans read them too, even if they don't put words to it. When your star moves from promise to proof, the noise drops. None of this erases the grief of a career that could have been even bigger without the injury reel. It also doesn't erase what he already is. One of the most talented Brazilian footballers of his generation, a Champions League winner, a Copa do Brasil kid made global, a player who turned nutmegs into currency and pressure into playground. The sadness now is that the canvas has shrunk. There isn't much time left to repaint the ending, and the game is merciless about how it treats hope without continuity. But football still allows for late works, short, sharp, decisive runs that give a season its signature. In practical terms, the next months define the tone. If he strings together 10, 12, 15 consecutive appearances with controlled minutes, you'll see the decision-making sharpen and the risk-reward balance tilt back in his favor. If he finds 2 or 3 automatisms with the left back and the striker, receiving on the half turn, slip pass to the underlap, low cutback, finish, goals and assists will follow even on quieter legs. If he accepts fewer ball-carrying marathons and more quick surgeries, he'll hurt opponents in smaller doses more often. And if the body says no again, then at least the attempt will have been honest and structured, not a series of emergency comebacks taped together by hope. As for the national team dream and the European echo, they stop being objectives and become side effects. If he plays, produces, and stays fit, those conversations will emerge on their own. If he doesn't, forcing them will only feed the wrong narrative. The end of a great career isn't just a date. It's a negotiation with your own limits. The 6-0 was a brutal reminder. The tears were human. What comes next is the choice to chase a last perfect picture that may never come, or to accept a different kind of masterpiece. A smaller, precise, resilient run that leaves the field better than it found it. Maybe that's the dignity available now. Not a coda in Camp Nou, not a parade of greatest hits, but a sober, crafted final act in the shirt that started it all. Fewer sprints, more scalpel. Fewer promises, more presence. If he can turn pain into rhythm, it won't rewrite the past, but it can redeem the present. And if it doesn't happen, if the body keeps tapping out, there is still grace in watching a genius try to solve a problem he can't dribble past. Football remembers that too.